Hey, I got a great exercise for you today to increase your creative capacities and specifically to address something that prevents a lot of people from being more creative. It's the inner judge. So this exercise will help you deal with the inner judge that stops you from being creative. Again, the reason I think this is important is because creativity, I believe, is one of the most important capacities for businesses and individuals to develop for success in the 2020s. And this is one way to help with that. All right, so let's jump right in. There's a TED Talk by Tim Brown, and he talks about an exercise that he does with his audiences where he asks them to turn to your neighbor, already a terrifying moment, turn to your neighbor, and he has them draw the person next to them. And what he says happens when he does this is that there's a lot of apologizing and backpedaling and, geez, I'm sorry about my artistic skill and that type of thing, as people are sort of attempting to sketch out the person that's next to them. And what's interesting is that he says, as he attempts to do this with young audiences, like young children, what he finds is that there's never any apologies. He says, this is what the assignment is, turn to your neighbor, draw your neighbor, and they are very enthusiastic. They jump right in, they start into their artwork, and then they very enthusiastically hand that artwork over to the other person. Yay, this is what I made. So obviously something is happening between when we're young and when we grow up. And one of the key things that's really happening is that the inner judge is becoming so strong that it becomes a force that prevents us from even attempting to be creative. 2 weeks ago, we shared the 9 intelligences self-assessment, where people were able to kind of rate how they feel their intelligence scores would be in the 9 different categories. And each one of these is tied to creative capabilities. So recognizing where you're strong and weak in in the inventory of the 9 intelligences helps a lot for building your creativity, especially where you identify where you might be weak. And one area where a lot of people think that they are weak, or at least their inner judge has them believing they are weak, is in artistic capability. And there's also a really strong correlation that people have in their minds between being artistic and being creative. And that's kind of a fallacy, but it still prevents people from putting a hand up and saying, I think I'm a creative person. It's because they lack what they perceive as artistic skill. There's a lot of other ways to be creative, but this is one we're going to talk about today. So now to the exercise. This exercise is very similar to the one that Tim Brown uses. You do want to turn to your neighbor. You can freeze my picture if you want to, pick a different one, have somebody in your family sit across from you. And for 2 minutes, you're going to sketch that person, but in a very specific way. So we're going to use a technique, blind contour drawings. This is a technique where you have just a single line, right? You put your pen down, and for 2 minutes, you're going to move your pen around, sketching this person out, but without lifting the pen off the paper. Here's why. You're not going to take your eyes off the person. You're not going to put your eyes on the work, on your art. You're going to keep your eyes off of that for the entire 2 minutes. The reason we use blind contour for this is because if you take your pen off the page, the urge becomes overwhelming to look, to see where you want to put the pencil or pen back down on the page in order to continue with the artwork. If you keep the pen on the page, your mental orientation for the work can persist in such a way that you can overcome the urge to look at the work. And the reason why we want to keep your eyes off the work is to allow you to have just 2 minutes to create without the judge in action, so that your artistic self can really just be free in that moment of creation. Now, when you're done with your contour, you take a look at it, it's likely to not be awesome, but that's not the point. The point is not to create an awesome drawing. The point is to experience the moment of getting your inner judge out of the way so that your inner creative, that childlike creativity has a chance to just do its thing. So the other thing I want to say about it not being necessarily awesome is that is actually a really important part of being creative. For a lot of very creative people, one of the things that they've gotten used to is that the first version of a thing that they produce isn't going to be awesome. In fact, I just try to produce things almost as quickly as I can because I know that the second one I produce is going to be a lot better than the first one. So I just want to get the first one out of the way. This actually could be an exercise you try several times so that when you get a sense of what's happening with your pen on the page as you just look at the subject, you actually can improve rather markedly, actually, the second and third version of your contour drawing pretty quickly. So that's the exercise. Go ahead and give it a try. Give your inner judge a chance to just take a side seat as you create and hopefully bring that into some of your other work. All right, more exercises will be coming your way soon. Thanks for watching.